Hey guys, you're watching Boogie Plays Games, or sometimes Boogie Plays Games. I'm not actually going to play a game today. In fact, if it's alright with you, I'd like to recap the Game Awards. Now let me say right off the bat, this will be a critical look at the Game Awards, but it's not going to be a cynical look. I'm not going to call Jeff Keighley the Dorito Pope. I'm not going to make fun of iJustine. I'm not going to make fun of the concept overall, because in reality, I love what Jeff Keighley has done here, rescuing the only Game Award show in the United States from Spike Television and using his own money and his own connections to try to put together a good show. And this is his second year doing that, and has it been perfect both years? Absolutely not. But it's much better than it was with Spike TV, and I think Game Awards like this is something that gaming needs. I think it's something the industry needs, and I think it's something that some fans actually respect and enjoy. And sure, every award show in the end is a big circle jerk, patting each other on the back for what a great job we've done. However, I think it's something the gaming industry really needs, because for each video game that you've played, hundreds of people have gone to work for it, millions of dollars have been spent, and at the end of the day, these people do get shit on every day by my Francis character, by me, by critics who review these games, and gamers who don't like them. I feel it's nice to have at least one night to give back to those people for creating the games that some of us love so very much. First thing I'll say is it was a big improvement, in my opinion, over last year. And I know a lot of you are going to disagree with that, but here's my reasoning for that. Number one, it was shorter, and it kept to a nice tight 2 hours, which I thought was fantastic. Plenty of on-stage awards, and those awards were treated with a fair amount of reverence, and I thought that was really cool as well. The music acts this year were not as good as last year, in my opinion. I think in nobody's opinion. However, I thought they were okay, and they felt like they fit for the most part. I didn't really care for the acts that were there, like Deadmau5 or our church or churches or whoever they are. I didn't really enjoy that music very much. I do like the video game related stuff, and I wish there was more of it and more video game composers or YouTube celebrities like Dan Bull who make music about video games, but that's nitpicking. Overall, I know they're bringing in names people recognize, and that they do that to try to get people to watch the show, even though it actually kind of makes me hit mute or tune out for a little while. I feel like the scripted dialogue was a lot better this year as well. Not as cheesy as last year, and I had to deliver one of those lines last year, but I enjoyed the line I delivered. But the only thing that made me feel uncomfortable with the scripted dialogue this year was the bits with iJustine interviewing people about Star Wars Battlefront, and it has nothing to do with Justine. I love Justine. I'd take a bullet for Justine. She's one of the nicest people I've ever met. However, that dialogue was clearly scripted, and it kind of came off as not as genuine as it should have been. Obviously, that was paid promotional stuff, or at least it felt like it to me. I could be wrong. Jeff's got to pay the bills. iJustine's got to pay her bills. EA wants to advertise their game. I get that. Sometimes that kind of content can make me uncomfortable, just the same way it makes you uncomfortable. I'm sure not everybody felt that way. But overall, I feel like it's really grown from last year, and it's a huge difference from when Spike TV was involved. And I think overall, it's a good improvement. There's room left to go, but the overall presentation was better than last year, and I think it'll be even better next year. So let's get into the details. First off, there was a big kerfuffle about the jury that was chosen to vote on this. And there were, there were like 6 or 7 different categories that were all picked by us voting. So you can't really complain about that. But the rest were chosen by jury and advisors. And if you look at this list, I know there was a big kerfuffle about the fact there was only one woman, or maybe I think by the end there were 2 or 3 women. But for the most part, when the list originally came out, it was all dudes. I don't really care about that much. That's somebody else's fight. For me, what I was worried about is the place that these people came from. Because here we have Associated Press, Os Gamers, Corrida Sorrell, I don't know what this is, Edge, Electric Playground, Entertainment Weekly, Extra Life, Famitsu, Game Informer, GameSpot, Games Radar, Games Trailers, Giant Bomb, IGN, LA Times, Level Up, Mashable, Nerdist, PC Gamer, Penny Arcade, which is nice to see somebody from Penny Arcade, Polygon, US Gamer, USA Today, Vice, Wired, Yahoo. Where's the people from YouTube? Where's the people from Twitch? Where's the people that, I think more closely represent the gamers themselves, necessarily people that are locked or embedded in the industry or the journalists that cover this industry, which are pretty much part of the industry themselves anyway. Now, this is how it's done for other award shows as well. It always comes from people inside the industry, sometimes the press, sometimes critics. So it's difficult to nitpick here. But in the 2 years that Jeff has been doing this, I wanted to see people from YouTube, from Twitch, people who are closer to gamers, at least getting to be on the advisory board, and I don't understand why that hasn't happened. I really hope it happens for the next year. And I will say about this whole sexism kerfuffle, where the majority of these people are men, these organizations had the opportunity to volunteer who represented them on this jury. If you have the choice between a male and a woman, why did you all choose men? Like, you can't blame this on Jeff. You can't blame this on the Game Awards. You got to pick somebody that you want to pick. And if the most knowledgeable person in your office is a woman, send a woman. And one of the other sexist complaints I heard about this show is from the other side, people saying, it sure does look like they put a lot of women up on that stage when they didn't necessarily need to be up there. And by my review, about half the people that were on that stage were women, which makes sense because half of all people are women. And in the perfect world, half the people you see at any award show or any particular place are probably going to be women, unless it's like a men's locker room or something to that effect. And the women that were up there, they weren't just people that were chosen because they were female. You know, they didn't send a secretary. They sent people who coded or directed or edited or worked on these games. And those women deserve to be up there just as much as anybody else. And anybody who doesn't think so is probably wrong. Man, I probably pissed off both halves of my audience in the last minute or so. Oops. But now that I've bored you with all of that bullshit, let's talk about the winners. And let's start with Developer of the Year being CD Projekt Red. Their game, Witcher 3, also taking home Game of the Year and I believe Best RPG. Now, is Witcher 3 the perfect game? Probably not. I don't think a game that came out this year was perfect. How close is The Witcher 3 to perfect? It definitely has some issues. It definitely had some bugs at launch. Not a lot of people enjoy the combat or the crafting, and a lot of those complaints are absolutely reasonable, and I understand them because I share some of those complaints. What you have to consider here, I think, is three things. Number one, CD Projekt Red is not EA or anything close to it. They are a fairly small developer, and no one thought they could pull off what they created. And ultimately, what they created was an incredible game. It may not be to your liking, and it may not be perfect, but it is one of the best games to come out in many, many years, and quite certainly one of the best crafted games of this year. Not only were there no microtransactions or no exploitive DLC or any bullshit, this company released their game DRM free if you wanted it to be. They managed to give away, 15 pieces of free DLC for anyone who bought it. What an incredible company. And they're one of the very few companies that are treating customers with the respect and reverence that they deserve. And that's why they swept the Game Awards. Because even your most hardcore, bought-out, 2-bit journalist has to see that CD Projekt Red is what gaming companies should be. And when you look at the list of games that were nominated for Game of the Year, Bloodborne and Fallout 4 and Metal Gear Solid 5, Phantom Pain, and Super Mario Maker, this was a ridiculously tough decision. But I can understand, because of how beautifully crafted and well-made The Witcher 3 is, that's the reason it won out. It may not be the most fun to you or the one that fits your liking, but absolutely, it is a work of art. Best indie game of the year was Rocket League, and that makes a lot of sense because it came out of nowhere for a lot of people, and it lived at the top of Twitch for a long time. I'm still playing that to this day. Some of you are still playing it to this day. Compared to the other games on this list, I think it did really well. Though I have to say, once again, I have not played Undertale. I expected these votes to go very differently. I got almost every category wrong, by the way. So that shows you how much I know. Specifically, like Best Mobile Handheld Game, the winner was Lara Croft Go. Lara Croft Go? What? What? Who even played that? How is that possible? I originally elected to not speak about Best Narrative, and I'm hesitant to do it here. Life is Strange, Tales from the Borderland, Witcher 3, Until Dawn, and Her Story were the nominees. Her Story won, and I have to say, I was completely unfamiliar with that game going into it. I have since watched somebody play that game. It was a very short playthrough for certain. And the game is actually very interesting and very different, but I don't think you can argue that it is not one of the better narratives of a video game in a really, really long time. I'm really surprised that Until Dawn didn't win because I thought the narrative there was much more complex and interesting. But then again, it really comes down to personal preference in a lot of ways of the people that are voting on that jury. Best art direction, we had Arkham Knight, Bloodborne, Metal Gear Solid, Ori and the Blind Forest, and The Witcher 3. I feel like they wanted to give something to Ori and the Blind Forest, and I feel like this is a really, really good choice. The art direction there, it doesn't look as beautiful as a lot of these other games, but it does absolutely have its own art direction. It is very unique in the way that it's stylized, where these other games look pretty much the way you would expect them to. I know a lot of people argue that Bloodborne probably should have won this, and I can definitely agree there, because the art direction for Bloodborne was insane, but I can see why Ori and the Blind Forest won it. Best score soundtrack, Fallout 4, Halo 5, Metal Gear Solid, Ori and the Blind Forest, and The Witcher 3. Metal Gear Solid 5 wins this one. That makes a lot of sense because not only was the music from that game pretty damn good, they even had at the Game Awards the actress who voiced Quiet perform Quiet's theme on stage. So obviously the jury loved that song. Best performance, and this is probably the controversy I should save for last. In fact, I'm going to. Let's skip it. Let's go on to Games for Change Award. Here we had a winner being Life is Strange, which is, again, a game I haven't played, so it's very difficult for me to comment on that. These other games on the list, I know very little about. I know enough about Undertale to wonder why that game didn't win it, but now I know that Life is Strange is absolutely on my list of games to play. Best shooter went to Splatoon, and I did not think that was going to happen. Part of me cynically expected, like, EA to get it for Star Wars Battlefront, but obviously that was not the case. Halo 5 was really, really good, and I really, really enjoyed it. The Taken King was okay, but I think a lot of people felt that should not get a chance to win it because it is a expansion and not an actual standalone game. Call of Duty Black Ops 3 may as well be an expansion, even though I really enjoyed zombies in Black Ops 3 this year. Splatoon wins it and gets it for the obvious reason. Nintendo is learning life lessons and learning how to create online games, to create a shooter, and do it in a very Nintendo way. Not only that, but the game is ridiculously fun. Easily one of my favorite games of the year. A game that I feel everyone should play, and I know that's going to be very difficult to do because no one owns a Wii U. But if you do, you definitely should at least rent or play Splatoon at some point because, wow, what an amazing game. All that free DLC they keep giving me certainly doesn't hurt. Best action adventure game, you had Assassin's Creed Syndicate, Batman Arkham Knight, Metal Gear Solid, Ori and the Blind Forest, Rise of the Tomb Raider. I've only started playing Rise of the Tomb Raider, but I think it's very, very good. Metal Gear Solid obviously was the larger game, and where it did have its issues, it was definitely one of the most interesting games. Easily, I think, the winner in that category. I forget what my prediction was. I think I might have chosen Rise of the Tomb Raider, but certainly if Metal Gear Solid isn't getting Game of the Year, they deserve that. Best role-playing game, we had, of course, Witcher 3 winning there. We've already covered that. Best fighting game, Guilty Gear XRD, Mortal Kombat X, Rise of Incarnates, or Rising Thunder. I know very little about this category, having played only Guilty Gear and Mortal Kombat. And I definitely understand why Mortal Kombat won, because they did a wonderful job with that game, and it really, really looks next generation. It's graphically beautiful. It's a huge improvement over previous Mortal Kombat games. Very, very good. Best family game was Disney Infinity 3.0, which I loved. LEGO Dimensions, which I think is okay. Skylander Superchargers, which I think is okay this time. Splatoon, which I understand they're not going to give it multiple awards, but definitely could have won here. But Super Mario Maker deserved a win somewhere. And easily, it's the best family game. The reason I say that is because anyone can play it, and it is a game you will love to share with your family. Hey, Dad, play this level I made. Hey, son, beat this level I made for you. That is the best part of that game, and it's beautiful as well. Best sports/racing game, FIFA, Forza, NBA, Pro Evolution Soccer, or Rocket League. Rocket League wins 2 awards and deserves this one here. I know literally nothing about every other game on that list other than microtransactions in most of them. Best multiplayer. And this could have gone anyway. Call of Duty, Black Ops 3, Destiny the Taken King, Halo 5, Guardians, Rocket League, or Splatoon. I definitely thought Rocket League had it here, and if not, I definitely thought Destiny the Taken King had it here, because it's obviously the best multiplayer experience on that list. Even if the game itself is not that great, it forces you to work together to raid, right? So that seemed like a shoe-in. Splatoon wins it here. Again, I just said I didn't think they would get multiple awards, and clearly they did. But that said, what a wonderful multiplayer experience, and I'm very satisfied with that answer. Most anticipated game, and I think this was voted on not by the jury, but by the viewers. We had Horizon Zero Dawn, No Man's Sky, Quantum Break, The Last Guardian, and A Thief's End. And whereas I know a lot of people love to hate on No Man's Sky and are very, very cautious about that game, including myself, I agree. Esports Player of the Year is somebody named Kenny Shrub. I don't know who he is. Winner of Esports Team of this year is Optic Gaming, which makes sense to me because that's the only esports team that I know on this list. I've not heard of anybody else. Actually, I've heard of Team Solomid. Esports Game of the Year was Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Again, know very little about this. Trending Gamer, definitely something I wanted to talk about a little bit here. You got Total Biscuit, you have Monte Cristo, you have Greg Miller, Markiplier, and PewDiePie. Obviously, PewDiePie and Mark have their audience, and obviously, PewDiePie is trending harder than anybody else. At the end of the day, though, this had to do with people voting on it, and the person that won was Greg Miller. Now, I love Total Biscuit, and he has been instrumental once again this year, but he won the award last year, and I really did not see his audience voting him in a second time, and that was the case. The person that did win was Greg Miller, and boy, do I have a lot of things to say about Greg. I heard a lot of people on Twitter, and even in real life, say, who the hell is Greg Miller? And I understand why you feel that way, because I've only really known about Greg, I guess, for a couple years now. But he's had a podcast that he ran over there at IGN, I think, for 8 years. And I'd listen to it very rarely, but occasionally. He does it with his friend Colin, and they have a pretty good chemistry together, and they're pretty damn funny. But about a year ago, they decided to hit the eject button at their comfy jobs at IGN to strike out on their own and do pretty much what they were already doing, just for themselves rather than the big corporate machine. In doing so, they allowed themselves to be crowdfunded via Patreon. And they had one of the most record-breaking Patreon numbers I have ever seen, because their audience is engaged and absolutely loves them. And as they've created YouTube content and Patreon content for a year now, they have grown their audience quite a bit. And it has been beautiful to watch them do this. The folks over there at Kinda Funny Games have managed to do something that no one else has done in a really long time. They have almost entirely reinvented what gaming journalism has to be. And certainly while they're still pretty much gaming journalists, they're straddling the line between podcasters, journalists, YouTubers, streamers, personalities. Holy shit, do I love those guys. I hope they never hear this, because they're going to hear me gushing and it's going to make me feel awful. If you don't know them, you probably should at least look them up and get an idea of what I'm talking about. But if you're going to look up anything on Greg Miller, I really want you to listen to the speech that he gave during the Game Awards. In fact, actually, here's a little bit of it now.
Jeff, I'll do the first part really fast. Beyond! Thank you to the thousands of Kinda Funny best friends who voted for me. Thank you to my parents for never trying to talk me out of doing video game journalism. Thank you to my beautiful girlfriend, Christine, who is okay with her apartment being a production studio. And of course, thank you to Nick, Tim, Colin, and Kevin for helping me live this dream that is kindafunny.com. But more importantly, the person I'd like to thank is Nicole Tan. Nicole Tan is an environment artist for Crystal Dynamics. I have never met Nicole Tan. I beat Rise of the Tomb Raider this weekend, saw her name go through the credits, along with dozens of other names I didn't recognize. And this happens all the time. Every time I finish a game, hundreds of names I don't know. So today, I'm the trending gamer. I am a duly elected representative of you, the gamers. So on behalf of the gamers, I want to say thank you. Thank you to everyone in this room that makes video games. Thank you to everyone at the home right now, directors, producers, writers, animators who make video games. Hell, thank you to the guy who's working on a Maya project right now and won't see this till it's on YouTube tomorrow. We all know that making a game is not a glamorous life. It is long hours. It's time away from your family, and no matter what, when the game's out, someone on the internet is going to be mean to it. I'm sure it comes down every day. Somebody says, is this worth it? And I want you to know that on behalf of the millions of lives you change, it is worth it. Thank you for making games. I would not be the person, we would not be the people we are today if it wasn't for video games. So thank you, each and every one of you who does this, makes video games. Thank you for your art, and know that we are forever in your debt.
Now, what's incredible about this speech to me is he really does get it, you know? Like, as a video game journalist, he really does appreciate the people that make games as much as he appreciates the people who plays them, as much as he appreciates his role in it. Man, Greg Miller, do I have a crush on you. Now, saving the best for last, let's talk about the big controversy about Best Performance. Nominated for Best Performance was Ashley Birch as Chloe Price from Life is Strange, Camille Luddington as Lara Croft for Rise of the Tomb Raider, Doug Cockle as Geralt in The Witcher 3, Mark Hamill as the Joker, my personal pick, in Batman Arkham Knight, and finally Viva Sarift for Her Story. I have no idea if I pronounced her name right. Sorry, Viva. Now, apparently the card that was read had a misprint on it. It says the award goes to Viva Sarift for Witcher 3, which caused probably the best reaction gift to come from the entire thing, as somebody from CD Projekt Red kind of threw his hands up like, what the hell? Many people have speculated that maybe Witcher 3 was supposed to win and they gave the wrong name. Many people have speculated that Viva was supposed to win, but they gave the wrong game. Regardless, someone screwed up when printing those cards, and it's left a lot of people scratching their heads. Now, first things first, everybody else on this list was voice acting. Viva is the only person that had to also give a physical performance as well, and that alone would be an argument for her to win this category. A lot of people, including me, feel like her performance wasn't perfect or anything close to it, but it was still pretty good and probably a slightly larger challenge than voice acting, even though, of course, Doug Cockle did a great job and had to do an incredible amount of scripted dialogue. Maybe her performance, which was shorter, was a better quality to the eyes of the people of the jury. A few people are butthurt because this is certainly a game that is very unique. It doesn't really feel like what a hardcore gamer would consider a game. It's definitely a very light game, taking about an hour and a half to 2 hours to figure out. It doesn't really have an end state or a fail state. It doesn't have a final cut scene. It's a mystery game, and it doesn't feel like much of a game at that until you've played it yourself, which I went ahead and downloaded and fiddled with. And even though I watched a playthrough of it, it's still really, really interesting to figure out yourself. And I think it's a game that people love to hate. Maybe that's justified, maybe not. But at the end of the day, for Best Performance, simply because she had to give a physical performance as well, I definitely can see why they gave her this role. And I don't think I disagree with it. So overall, I think the Game Awards was a pretty good experience this year. I'm sad that I couldn't have physically been there, but I was definitely glad to get to co-stream it here at home. It's been something I've talked about with my wife and my family and my friends quite a bit, and it's something I've talked about on Twitter as well. It's been nice to get all of my thoughts and ideas out here in this little video. Tell me what you think. Was this video way too long? Did you enjoy it? As always, guys, thanks for watching. I love you very much, and I'll speak with you again soon.